Today, we are learning basketball with Steph Noh, writer with Sporting News, Noh's Notebook on Substack, and formerly The Athletic. Steph covers the Chicago Bulls with film breakdowns and analytics and the NBA. He's built an NBA comparison generator for matching players to style of play archetypes and a basketball quizzes program to help teach quick basketball concepts to the masses, colleges, and teams. He's had some incredible profiles. One really nice one on Caitlin Cooper, who does incredible work with the Pacers. Shout out Caitlin. Dove into things like Luke Cornett contests to gauge how the numbers actually work. Deep dives on the NBA draft Twitter and even the birthplace of basketball analytics on message boards. And I got to start with a very niche article, the NBA's obsession with anime and Dragon Ball Z and Naruto. So, how did you go about finding that out, and what really surprised you the most about that article, and more importantly, how are you doing today, Steph?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for that intro. I was wondering how far back you were going to go. That's a lot of research. You missed my first grade spelling bee runner up, but you hit about every other major life accomplishment that I've had. So thank you for that.
Hey, well deserved. You would have had him in that spelling bee. I mean, if I had
Volcano,
known.
man. I
Oh
never
man.
forgot that word.
Oh no. Which letter got you? You
I
know.
don't, I don't remember, but yeah, I remember looking it up right after I got it wrong.
Man, that, that damn lava came out of
Yeah.
nowhere.
Yeah,
So
but to answer your question, are you an anime guy? Is that why you're curious?
yeah, with Akira Toriyama's passing not too long ago, I kind of got back into Dragon Ball a little bit and wanted to kind of catch up on maybe some things that I had missed over the year. Like I grew up watching Dragon Ball Z and the original Dragon Ball, so kind of wanted to give the Super a chance and maybe check out some of the games and stuff. So I found some. I had no idea there were so many movies like dating back to the '90s. There's like 20 like movies that they've gone and made. So just kind of got back into it a little bit, and then I started reading that anime article and just realized how many players are into it. I knew like Cole Anthony on the Magic was really into it. He's mentioned like being, I think, a Trunks fan from
Okay.
that show. Big
Checks
fan.
out.
And then you mentioned Joel Embiid. I kind of have a vague memory of that. Him on the sideline with the clip, uh, like watching anime Dragon Ball right before getting back into a game. So I was just kind of curious how you ended up writing about that topic, and maybe anything that surprised you, like that. I think it was Zion said like 80% of the league is secretly into anime and Dragon Ball and Naruto and things like that.
Yeah, so I first got the idea, Larry Markkinen, when he was a rookie. I mean, I think he spent a year in Arizona, but he was still relatively new to the States. So he would travel with these Dragon Ball manga, uh, like books on the road. He would just have one all the time. I thought that was like pretty cool. And then, I just like slowly started picking up that a lot of guys in the league really like Dragon Ball. It kind of makes sense because the show is mostly about training. And obviously, like the NBA players have to do that a lot. But yeah, I decided to write that story. I guess like a little bit behind baseball is just like when you go into these locker rooms, oftentimes the players are not like super eager to talk to you. And it's a much better interview. It's much more interesting to me when you get to talk to people about their passions because they really open up. And as you talk to players more and more, you just realize that they're like fairly normal people. They just happen to be really tall, really athletic, really good at putting a ball through a hoop. Like Cole Anthony is such a perfect example. Like when I got him, it can be kind of challenging to get these guys through PR. But he just like ran into the hallway. He was so excited to talk about anime with someone, and he was giving me all these show recommendations and stuff. He got me really into this anime Chainsaw Man, which was his favorite at the time. I started watching it. So yeah, it's just like a lot of my stories are that way, where I try to pick stuff that people have not done and that people want to talk about and people want to read about.
That's a great point. Just getting able to maybe humanize these athletes a little bit more that not everyone kind of does in their work and maybe forgets about that when they're making all these bets and getting it screaming over whether or not some guy got an 11th rebound that didn't quite hit their whatever random bet they made, that these are people first, and basketball players is their career and one of their passions, but a lot of them do a lot of things. You got Dame Dalla Lillard, writing raps and making hit albums with Lil Wayne. You got passions all over the place with all these players, so it's nice to see you kind of bringing some light to that, and it's definitely, you can see how that's an interesting way to get players to open up, and maybe still talk about basketball too, but get to know them as people first.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it's all connected too. Like, I am a huge fan of Swish theory. I love the depth that
they
you guys go into with your scouting reports and stuff like that. Um, but also, like, there's a decent amount that you all talk about, the personality stuff too, right? Like, who's a hard worker, who's passionate about what, And yeah, I think that stuff, like I said, it all just like ties together in player eval.
Hey, appreciate that. We love Swish Theory here. It's a Swish Theory podcast, and we're excited to learn some basketball with you. So, speaking of kind of your process, I kind of, in a general sense, just wanted to know, like, as an analyst, as a scout, like what do you look for when you're writing about the basketball pieces? Like, what kind of skills or types of players or just anything do you prioritize when you're scouting basketball? Like, is it the plays? Is it the players? Is it the coaching styles? Like what really stands out to you when you're analyzing the game?
I mean, if you're doing this as a job or even a very serious hobby, you can definitely attest to this. You watch a ton of film, and it all starts to kind of blend together. So, what I look for, what is interesting to me, is just stuff that stands out. And a lot of times, like my personal interest, I guess, is things that stand out because players are doing something really clever or smart that their opponents are not, and that's how they're getting an edge. I mean, basketball's a zero-sum game, right? So, like, if you're doing something bad, then somebody is benefiting from that and vice versa. So, like, um, yeah, like, it's easier to see if somebody's just a ridiculous athlete and players can't stop them. But, for instance, I was watching Lonzo Ball last night, and his ability to recognize when Coby White was switched in a pick and roll onto Rudy Gobert and then scram him out of that matchup instantly. That's the kind of thing where you don't see every player make that kind of read in real time in less than a second, And that saves his team points because they were going to go to Rudy on that play. Coby White is, really small defender. And Rudy's not a great post player, but he can definitely take Kobe in the post. So just stuff like that. Yeah. That's the stuff where I'm like jotting a note down and being like, okay, this is what makes this player special.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought up Lonzo and his feel. That's a big reason I wanted to talk to you today. You just had this nice video recognizing his first game back, which was literally last night, a preseason game, first basketball game in 2.5 years, I think.
33
That
months. Yeah.
33 months getting through these injuries. Sounds similar to the way we've talked about Jonathan Isaac before, who also missed a large chunk of time, but came back pretty much just as impactful of a defender that Lonzo seemed to be last night. I mean, you pointed out that his instincts are something that aren't going to go away to injury. Like, the body may fail him at some point, or it might slow down at some point, but he's always going to understand the game, know where to be, especially defensively, and know where his teammates are and should be. Like, to me, Lonzo always stood out for his two-way feel, his connective passing, his defensive playmaking, just constantly making winning plays. And maybe he almost got overtasked at times as like a primary initiator point guard, but he's clearly just a connector that makes the right play, winning plays on both ends of the floor constantly. He's relocating. He's a splashy jump shooter, drilling, catch and shoot threes, especially. He's connector passing, looking for the open man, able to drive and kick very, very well. And then, you saw last night how he, can read the play on defense, run across the court to steal a ball from behind the guy, and then dives out of bounds to save it, and it's perfectly in line, throwing it back. I actually wrote about him and Caruso and that squad with DeRozan, that what if team of the Bulls a little while ago. It was like December 2021, and was just really almost blown away that at the idea that a backcourt of defenders, strong defenders, can kind of be the anchor of a strong defense, even when the front court might be barely passable, or might just definitely not their strong suit with more score first minded players like DeRozan, Lavine, and Vucevic down there. And yet Caruso and Lonzo were top five in deflections. Lonzo was like top 10 in steals at the time. He was just drilling threes. Like this was two or 3 months into the 2021 season, so a little while back. But he was like 42% on 5 catch and shoot threes a game, 43% on 2 pull up threes a game, and that core unit of the star 5 players had a plus 11 net rating. Like it was clearly a winning team that had figured some things out. And it's a what if now, but it's nice to at least see Lonzo looking like himself in one quick game back, and just kind of see where he goes from here. Like, let me ask you, kind of what do you think he went through his recovery process, and how hard that was, and then where do you think fans should kind of expect his impact to be going forward, as still a relatively young player who's just good on both ends and knows where to be.
So I believe he had 2 meniscus surgeries and a total cartilage replacement,
Ooh.
which to my knowledge has maybe happened once before in the NBA, and I think it happened once in the NFL. And I think in both cases, like, the players just were not able to return to their previous levels. So this is fairly unprecedented. Just the fact that he was able to get in for a preseason game is more than I thought that he would be able to do. I mean, I thought he was done for sure. So huge testament to his work. Just like an incredible amount of rehab. As far as what to expect, I mean, I don't think he's ever going to play it back to back again. I don't know if so. Like what Billy Donovan said is we shouldn't really put expectations on it because, as I said, it's just like there's nothing to compare this to. So yeah, he wants to play. The Bulls have another game on Friday. He wants to play in that one. They're going to see how his body responds and kind of make a determination from there. But I mean, if he was able to play even like 1,000 minutes this year, I think it would be a huge win for the Bulls and something that they're not really counting on. It's just kind of like a bonus.
Right. And maybe with season expectations not necessarily winning it all this year, there isn't necessarily an extra push to like get every ounce out of him this season. Like maybe just bringing him back slowly, like you said, no back to backs, maybe not too many minutes. Do you think he'll be a starter at some point this season, or mostly just kind of working his way back into that basketball routine as a role player off the bench?
No, I don't think there's any chance he starts. I mean, maybe if they're decimated by injuries or something, but I don't think he's going to play more than 20 minutes a game max. I'm just like pulling that number out of thin air. I don't think anything's been reported, but just seems like he's not going to play that much. But I do think it's cool that the Bulls are treating it this way because I'm pretty sure he's an expiring contract for like 20 million, and they've already given him 20 million in each of the past 2 seasons when he hasn't really played for them. So they're really prioritizing him first. He is going to get healthy this year. It would be kind of weird if he came back, just because like the timeline of where the Bulls are and where he is. I think if he was able to consistently play, he would be a really interesting trade piece at February. Like, you mentioned this like connective player archetype. We saw how much the Celtics changed when they got Derek White. I've said, that Lonzo is basically like a 6'6" version of Derek White. He was able to guard up in position. He was able to guard power forwards. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that now, just because obviously like his body is not 100% still. But that type of player, you've seen how much of a crazy impact he can make. That's also why I'm really high on the Thunders. I mean, Caruso is like the exact same way. And these guys, I mean, they're around the league, and people don't realize how good they are because they're on horrendous teams. But when you put them on championship contenders or really good playoff teams, then it's just immediately evident like how much better they can make these teams.
Right. I mean, these are almost the ideal role player at the very least, that kind of can be scaled up to different usage when they're healthy at least, and being able to just bring that two-way versatility where they can defend multiple positions, they can hit the open three, dribble, pass, and shoot, and just make winning plays without having too many holes in their game. And if they're even better than average defenders on top of that, I mean they're really really valuable, especially around other stars in this league. So we wish Lonzo the best, and glad to finally see him back out on the court. It's a pleasure to just see him. So transitioning to kind of the play style for the Bulls. Last year they were really good at turnover team. They ranked fourth on offense at not turning the ball over and ninth on defense at forcing turnovers, while also rating highly in offensive rebounds at ninth in the league. Probably, I would imagine, due to Vucevic and Drummond off the bench. Like their specialty is rebounding. So you noted that with Giddey now in hand, Josh Giddey in the trade for Caruso, he might not be the best shooter or the best defender, but what he does really well is playmaking and shot creation for others, and at least being able to hit that drive and kick and make good reads. He's shown that overseas, especially. But so, what kind of expectations do you have for the Bulls? How the team will look this year? How they might run and gun with more spread offense, looking to move the ball and win in transition and by maybe taking more threes than they have before. Like, how do you? And lastly, do you think that will be their identity, or will they also be able to get some stops because of maybe all these role player defenders they brought in? They have Ayo Dosunmu, of course, is an ace defensive guard. Pat Will on the wing. Brought in Jalen Smith, and they have Torrey Craig, Chris Duarte. Some really solid team defenders now around some of their star scorers and main offensive options that might lean the other way. So where do you see this team identity for this season?
I think they're going to be a terrible defense. They're going to be like a bottom five defense. Your guy, your favorite player, Nikola Vucevic, defending the paint.
Ah, man.
The worst rim protector in the league, statistically.
I was going to thank you just for, willingly watching these Bulls games, taking that off my hands to not have to watch a Vucevic anchored defense. And, he does a lot of things well, but protecting the rim just is not really one of them. And we can't thank you enough for the Vooch trade. It's an all timer. It might be, other than the Magic trading Chris Webber for Penny Hardaway and like 4 first-round picks, it's pretty much the best trade the team has ever made. Getting Franz Wagner, the pick that became Franz Wagner and Jed Howard, and also Wendell Carter back. So we can't thank you enough for that.
Hey, we also got Al-Farouq Amino in that deal, so don't forget
that.
Vooch has been part of some top 10 defenses. As an aside, both in Orlando and Chicago. It's like that strategy you were talking about, like just having really, really good perimeter defenders. So I do think it's possible to scheme around him, but the Bulls don't have good perimeter defenders. I mean, you mentioned a couple guys. Duarte has not played much at all in the preseason. I don't think he's going to, I know he's not going to be part of the rotation unless, again, like injuries hit or something. Torrey Craig also hasn't played that much. So they're going to play their bad defenders. Like Coby White, he tries hard, but he's just small. He's like 6'5", but he has I think like a +0 wingspan, and he's pretty light, so he just gets kind of abused in bigger matchups. Zach, I think, is better than probably people think, but still, he can definitely have lapses off the ball, like a lot of lapses, so he's a minus. Giddey is, he just like can't stay in front of anyone. He was actually like doing an okay job on Julius Randle last night, but yeah, he just like doesn't have the foot speed or athleticism to really be impactful. So like teams can just pick whoever they want to bring into those matchups. What the Wolves did last night, which I thought was interesting, is they would run empty side pick and rolls with Giddey's defender and Vooch's defender, and have Coby White as the low man. So you have those 3 guys trying to defend a pick and roll. It's just like all 3 spots are weak, and all 3 guys need someone to cover for them. So yeah, teams are going to spam that over and over against the Bulls. You asked about the offensive play style. So shout out to Half Court Hoops on Twitter, and he also has a Substack. He's done play breakdowns for, I don't think he's gotten all 30 teams yet, but he's going to at some point. He wrote a story 3 years ago for Billy Donovan, calling the Bulls the 5-out team that doesn't shoot threes. And that's kind of who they've been the entire time. Is they have modern spacing principles. I mean, Billy has tried to do stuff. He just has not had the personnel. And they've generated a lot of 3-pointers. The problem is that those guys aren't taking the threes. So they had like Derrick Jones Jr., who, if you watched him in the playoffs, he just pump fakes a lot and he'll shoot them occasionally, but only when he's completely wide open. Pat Williams, too, you mentioned, he has a really good percentage on his threes, but he doesn't take a lot. Again, like he will only take them when he's wide open. Io too, just a ton of guys up and down the roster. The only guys the Bulls have that are willing shooters are Coby White and Zach Lavine. I might be missing someone off the top of my head, but I mean Javon Carter, but he doesn't really play. So it's going to be the same thing. Like it's going to be Billy's going to play 5 out. We've already seen it in the preseason. He wants to play faster. He's incorporating a lot of these pistol sets for the uninitiated. Pistol, it's called pistol because it's like you're firing a player out of a gun, like just running down the court, spacing out, and trying to get 3-man action, like in the very early portion of the shot clock. So the Bulls have done a ton of that, and they've done that before too. Yeah, but they just don't really have the personnel to pull off a modern offense, or I think like what Billy Donovan would ideally like to run. So it's going to be like kind of the same with a little bit more running, just because they lost DeMar, who's a slow player. That's the reason why they had low turnovers. Is like if you just have a guy with the ball in his hands a lot, you're not going to turn over much. And if you have a high passing team like the Warriors, for example, you are going to turn over a lot. So the turnovers are going to go up. The speed is going to go up. But as far as like the play style, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they'll have they have shot a lot of threes in the preseason, so maybe they'll just have guys chucking, but they don't have good shooters, so that's going to be kind of a problem.
Right, you hit on a lot of great points there. Shout out to Half Court Hoops. He does amazing work breaking down every team's plays, and I appreciate you breaking down a couple of Billy Donovan's favorite plays with Pistol. And I was gonna also ask if there were maybe any other plays or actions that you really appreciate or value that like clearly work for the Bulls, and maybe like are some of the go-to plays that he runs. And yeah, but I was also thinking how yes, Vucevic has shown he can be a part of a top defense. Back with
Yeah,
the
sorry, I
Magic,
covered a lot there.
yeah, you that's what it's all about. With the Magic with Steve Clifford, we had pretty much a very four-factor focused defense with defensive rebounding being a huge priority, and Vucevic was just asked to play drop defense with two defensive menaces in front of him, with Jonathan Isaac and Aaron Gordon, both healthy, both playing full-time starter minutes and just cleaning up everything. They were impossible to get past, and that was a lot of length to deal with. And Vuce just had to stay tall and long, play some
Yeah,
drop,
he's a
get the
great player,
rebound.
man. You guys should take him back.
We're good for now. Moving
Okay.
on. Maybe next time, but no, that's okay. But yeah, just wondering if there were any other plays or actions that you really appreciate from Donovan, and might follow up with some thoughts on Coby White. He nearly won Most Improved last year. He jumped from 6-man to averaging 9 points a game with a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, to a starter averaging 19 points a game and a 5-2 assist to turnover ratio, maintaining his efficiency with practically doubling some of the shooting volume on threes and twos. How much of that improvement was due to the opportunity just blowing up, or versus the internal development? And maybe with DeRozan out, could we see another leap for Coby White, maybe as a scorer this year?
Okay, so first part of your question, actions, interesting actions that the Bulls run. I mean, like it's pretty similar to what a lot of other teams run. Like I said, a lot of 5 out. They run a lot of chin action, which is like Princeton offense, where you're getting a cutter going to the basket and then like flowing into a high pick and roll. They are using a lot more elbow splits, which is a warrior set. You see Draymond throw it, get it thrown into him in the post, then Steph and Clay are screening for each other. One's diving, one's popping. So the Bulls are doing a little bit more of that to try to get some more movement into their offense. They were extremely pick and roll heavy team. I think they ran like the most pick and rolls last year. So maybe like trying to get a couple more easy cutting baskets this year, which is good to see. And then Coby. So Coby, his number one skill is probably his shooting, and he is such a streaky shooter, such a streaky shooter. But his percentages have always ended up around like 37%. And that's just like not doing justice to the kind of year he has, because he'll like start the year every year shooting 20%, then shooting like 60%, then shooting 20. It's not just like an even 40 for the year. Um, yeah, and he's like a really, when he gets hot, he does not need a lot of space at all. He can shoot off movement. What the big improvement from him last year was, which caused this jump, is he got a lot better as a pick and roll guy, as a creator, passing and setting up teammates. He got good chemistry with Vooch. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with him this year because the Bulls have a ton of guards. They have way too many guards with Giddey, with Lavine, with Coby, Ayo Dosunmu. So yeah, I don't know if like obviously they've been trying to trade Zach for a very, very long time. That'll open stuff up when, if and when that happens, which I think it will, because Zach is looking a lot better in this preseason, and he's showing that this idea that he's like the worst contract in the league is idiotic. It's just like not true. Um, will he get better with the absence of DeRozan? I don't think he will. That's like a very common opinion that DeRozan was holding him back because DeRozan had the ball so much and he had to ISO so much. But Coby is really good off the ball or like as a secondary second side guy. That's like where he did a lot of his pick and rolls. He's not good as like a primary advantage creator. And DeRozan was great at setting him up. He was great at setting everybody up, and he does not get the acknowledgement for doing that he probably should. Yeah, so I think Coby will probably like stay at the same level. To give a long-winded answer to your question, he'll probably stay around where he was last year.
Yeah, I can see it. I mean, DeRozan's definitely underrated in a lot of ways. Obviously, a mid-range assassin, but just a natural like half-court shot creator, smart offensive scoring creator, and right. I agree with Lavine too. I think he like gets maligned for his contract more than his skills because he's clearly a knockdown shooter and kind of a unique athletic scorer that can just hit really tough shots, show and touch like just from really interesting angles because of that athleticism. He's able to like float around the rim and pull up from deep range and like clearly a tough shot maker that any winning team can use that type of player at, especially when he has that high efficiency on that high volume, and like that can make up a little bit for maybe some of the defensive woes. But yeah, definitely an interesting roster. Not many bigs, like you said. A lot of guards, but like everyone's over 6'5", I think, on the whole roster. So it's like tall guards and tall wings, but just not very many rim protectors and bigs around. Which leads me to Patrick Williams. I'm a huge Pat Will fan. The Paw as the nickname. He's coming along. He maybe hasn't shown a ton of development since he's gotten to the league, but I've always loved certain aspects of his game. Like he just brings a great, energetic downhill force. He has really great ball instincts, blocking shots and help defense, jumping passing lanes. He seems like he should be a versatile defender, standing 6'8" with a 7-foot wingspan. Comes into the league really strong. Flashed a lot of this back at Florida State, and I admittedly was too high on him in the draft class. I had him number 1 because of all that tantalizing potential, and can see why they took him so high in what was a murky draft class at the time where there was no clear top guys, even though with retrospect, it's a lot easier to say, like, obviously Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball are these, star level prospects that should have been seen a little higher. And even his teammate at Florida State, Devin Vassell, has proven to be like a really tough shot making scorer. So with Pat Will, I like his mid range game, or at least the step in from the when he's attacking a closeout for a little midi pull up. You mentioned the high efficiency on 3-point shooting. He's like a career 41% 3-point shooter, but pretty low volume, only about 3 per game. So and also a really good off-ball mover, play finisher, cuts, transition, putbacks. He's even flashed a little pick and roll ball handling efficiency. So, where do you see his ceiling? And should he be maybe the main franchise player for the Bulls in terms of how they build their team going forward?
Ceiling, man, I don't know. Like you said, he has great tools for sure. I can see why you had him number one on your board, but he just has not been able to hit most of that stuff. I do not think that he should be the number one guy that the Bulls are building around, certainly. I think Modest is a better prospect than him, and the number one prospect is whoever they get in this 2025 draft. So he's like not on the team yet.
Yeah, time to capture the flag.
Yeah, yeah. The Bulls owe a pick to the Spurs. It's top 10 protected, so they have to be bad this year. Otherwise, they're
Mm,
really screwing themselves.
mm,
Yeah, as far as Pat goes, the main problem with him, the main reason why he has not been able to hit the player he should be, is because his motor is just really bad.
mm.
He kind of floats through games. His ball handling is just like crazy bad. Which is a shame because, like you said, you saw like some glimpses of him being able to do stuff in pick and rolls, but just hasn't been there. Like he turns it over extremely frequently anytime he gets an opportunity to try to create. But with that said, like he is already pretty solid defender, got good size. He can shoot wide open threes, which is like a useful NBA player. He just needs to. I don't know how much you can really level up your feel or your motor. That seems like stuff that's more kind of like an innate thing. But yeah, those are the two big things with him.
Well, you mentioned Matas Buzelis. What really excites you about him flying around? He clearly brings some of that competitive energy and motor and versatility. What do you like most about him? What do you see his upside as? And looking at the roster as a whole, which prospects do you think should be prioritized as the young core that this team is building around? Or is it, like you said, just waiting for the next draft pick to come in this year, and that's the guy that you're really almost starting from scratch and see who fits around him going forward?
Yeah, they don't have so I mean we know that like if you want to build a serious contender, you need at least a top 10 player in the league and more realistically like a top 5 guy has been traditionally. I mean like Tatum was a real outlier and he's borderline 5, 6, 7 somewhere in that range. Before that, I think current or future MVP was on every single finals team since, well, Kawhi was the other exception in 2019. But besides that, there had been an MVP on every team since like the 2004 Pistons. So that's like 18 of the last 20 finals teams, championship teams. So how do the Bulls get that guy? I mean, he's definitely not on the roster. Again, you're looking at 2025, 2026, whatever. Like the Bulls have all of their picks going forward, aside from this protected one for the Spurs. I think Buzelis, he was number one on a lot of boards before his G League season. And then he just like didn't really play that well. But a lot of that is just on his situation. The G League Ignite was pretty big tire fire to the point where it doesn't even exist anymore. They did have a lot of talent through that pipeline, but the guys that have come through the Ignite program just have not. They haven't looked very prepared. Like to be honest with you, like you look at Jalen Green, Scoot. I mean, they just like don't have any real success rates. So like hopefully the Bulls can hone Modest's skills a little bit more. I think the plan is for him to not play like a ton of minutes, which is unfortunate. I think they should really be prioritizing him and playing him as much as possible. His what I like about him is like I said, those things that you cannot really teach. The motor is awesome. His field defensively, I'm just like very surprised at how well he is um, at tracking the ball defensively. He said he studied Andre Kirilenko, and you can see that in his defensive tape. It's like a very good event generator on defense, and he does need to like really clean up his shot selection. But he's not afraid of making mistakes, which I think is like the most important thing in getting better. Is you have to be okay with failing, and he's definitely definitely okay with that. Like he is not shy about shooting the ball. Um, so yeah, maybe like the Bulls have a shooting coach that's supposed to be pretty good, Peter Patton. He can get his 3-point shooting up. I think he shot like 27% in the G. He did not shoot it well in summer league or preseason. So that's going to be like the big thing for him.
Yeah, can definitely see how being willing to make mistakes and just having a long leash from the coaching staff to be able to make those mistakes, especially with game reps, can be really, really important to development. And maybe that's what this year will ultimately be for the Bulls is a year of development, a year of gauging prospects and kind of hoping to reset a tone and style of play with Billy Donovan. Maybe like you said, they end up moving on from some of the long tenured players and really go all in on the youth movement. And there's some really exciting prospects at the top of the next couple of drafts. I mean, if it's not Flag or Edgecombe this year, there's Cam Boozer and AJ DeBonson next year, and former Bulls great with the painted head, Carlos Boozer could
Caden too. Caden's pretty
bring
good.
that coming. Oh yeah, Caden's a really strong playmaker. Going to be exciting. They both signed with Duke, so just like their dad as well. So that should be really cool to see them follow in the footsteps. And hopefully the Bulls get one of these guys and get back to the old ways. It's been a while since.
Yeah, the Bulls have to farm some players for the Magic, right? That's the plan.
Yeah, it's only right. It's only right to give back a little bit of everything that was stolen once upon a time. But hopefully when I think of the Bulls, not the only thing I think of, but my last favorite memory of the Bulls is that great D Rose, Joakim Noah team. I think Taj Gibson as well, and then just seeing that all-time, like it stands out, the all-time first-round series, Ben Gordon versus Bulls Celtics going off, Ben Gordon against Rajon Rondo, and it felt like you were watching a final series in the first round, just like two Goliaths, defensive monsters going at it. So hopefully, the Bulls mean a lot to this league, so hopefully they get back to that greatness, the style of play, and we're excited to see it. They definitely have some young, exciting defenders now, where maybe they continue to build around those guys and create a new pace, a new style of play around the up and down play, at least this year, to see who fits going forward. But I definitely appreciate you taking the time to talk some Bulls basketball today, Steph, and appreciate you hopping on the pod here with Swish Theory to learn some basketball and learn about the Bulls this season.
Yeah, let me give another quick shout out to Swish. So if Bulls people are listening to this, if you know Chris Amundsen, he's also a big part of Bulls Twitter.
Oh yeah.
What is he, like the owner of Swish? The
one of the co-creators, co-founders.
Yeah, so Chris and you all are doing a great job over at Swish Theory. Very detailed, well-informed analysis of players throughout the league. So yeah, check them out.
Hey, appreciate the kind words, and thanks for taking the time today, Steph. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, my pleasure.
With Ryan.
Learning Basketball is a Swish Theory podcast, hosted from Beyond the Arcade. Hey, that's me. You can find my work on Twitter, YouTube, Substack, and check out the team's website, theswishtheory.com.